This is the 2021 Volvo S90, and while the visual updates might not seem very severe, it looks pretty much like the old car. What's new is actually what's under the hood. Of course, the biggest thing about the Volvo S90 in its updated avatar is the fact that it's no longer available with a diesel engine. The D5 diesel is out, and in its place is the B5 mild hybrid petrol engine. Now, while Volvo does have hybrid and full EV models and powertrains available, in this mild hybrid form, what you're getting is a 48-volt integrated starter generator system, which basically utilizes some of the braking energy, stores it, and helps your start-stop system work off a little smoother, and it actually provides a very little amount of torque boost at very low speeds. It just smoothens out the power delivery from this turbocharged petrol engine. So where you'll see that come into effect is in situations like this. You feel the engine wake pretty much instantly the moment you get off the brake, and it comes to life with no shudder or no sound at all. So as far as start-stop system goes, this is one of the most seamless out there. Now, this 2-liter 4-cylinder turbocharged petrol engine is a very smooth operator, and with the start-stop being as seamless as it is and this engine being as smooth and refined as it is, especially at those lower revs, you get a little confused as to when the car is running and when it's not. Now, this engine puts out 250 PS and 350 Newton meters of torque, and those are respectable figures, but mind you, Volvo horsepower always feels a lot calmer than any other car maker's horsepower. Now, the performance is there if you seek it. Volvo claims 6.9 seconds in the 0 to 100 kmph run. We managed about 7.5. And the roll-on figures, just about the 2-second mark between our metrics, are respectable. They're not the greatest, but they're respectable for a car of this size. But because this 8-speed torque converter automatic feels so relaxed, the car never really feels rapid, and it doesn't encourage you to drive it rapidly. What the Volvo does excellently is very smooth roll-on performance, and it always feels like there's more than enough torque on tap, and you don't miss that diesel at all. As with the diesel though, the ISIN 8-speed continues to be the only potential downside to an otherwise alert powertrain in the B5, as we'll find out. So from the time that you take off from, say, a traffic light, you feel that gearbox sort of slushing through its shifts. Now, it does work well to keep the engine in the meat of its power band, and you feel this engine building power just under 2000 RPM, and keeping up with city traffic will have you sitting at around that mark. But when you want to go a little faster, you will find the engine climbing upwards of 3000 RPM just to keep you ahead of traffic, with again the gearbox slushing through its shifts. What you might also find at lower speeds especially is that the engine and gearbox don't seem to be working together very well all the time. There can be a little bit of a jerk as you get back on the throttle, say for example after you cross a speed breaker. Now, what's surprising, given the otherwise relaxed nature of this gearbox, especially noticeable when you ask for a kickdown and it takes just that split second to respond, is that when you slot it into manual mode, with the gears shifting laterally, which takes some time to get used to, but it gives you downshifts quite aggressively, which could help if you're in a hilly section, for example. Now, looping back to the engine itself, you really feel it come on strong as you near 3000 RPM, and as you climb the rev range, it feels very, very linear and very strong right up to it's about 6600 RPM redline. Like we said, outright performance is strong enough, though the payoffs of the 48-volt mild hybrid aren't really seen at the fuel pump, with the S90 averaging 10.6 kmpl in the city and 13.3 kmpl out on the highway. As for top speed, remember Volvo's commitment to safety as part of its Vision 2020 campaign. Yep, the new S90 is limited to 180 kmph, which is a brave move on Volvo's part, considering some mid-level SUVs can do better on paper. With this update, the S90 loses its drive modes, and the only option you get to tweak your driving experience comes in the way of a little toggle that lets you firm up the steering, which actually makes it feel just not as nice. I think the steering weight is perfect as is. If you're going a little faster and you want a little more weight, that's all it adds to it. For such a large car, the turning circle actually feels pretty tight, and of course, the light steering does help. Now, given the lack of drive modes and the fact that everything about this car says it doesn't like to be hustled, there is quite a bit of body roll and lean, though grip levels actually feel quite strong. Being front-wheel driven, the Volvo does have the tendency to push wide if you try and attack corners, with the non-switchable safety aids coming in quite abruptly. It is worth pointing out that the brake pedal can feel a little grabby at low speeds, but it's just a matter of getting used to it, because otherwise the braking performance is very sure. Now, typically Volvos are the most comfortable cars in their segment, but the S90 only comes with air suspension damping with the rear integral link setup with regular double wishbones and steel springs up front. Unfortunately, the low-speed ride feels a little busy, and it only starts evening out about 40-50 kmph, and it feels very, very pliant at about 80 and above. What that means is that the faster you tackle road irregularities and speed breakers, the better the ride is. Now, the driver assists on the S90 have been tweaked, and overall it just feels like it's a smoother experience than before. On well-marked roads and highways, you can actually let the car steer itself. It does give you a warning to take control of the steering wheel if your hands are too long off of it. In our experience, it actually identifies the median and your lane markings well enough, and it doesn't do too much of that pogoing effect where it takes you too close to one side and then it overcorrects and then it overcorrects, which becomes a vicious cycle. It feels a lot better in this, but personally, I'm not a big fan of these advanced driver assistance systems, at least not just yet in our country with our roads. I think it has the potential to make good drivers a little too complacent and bad drivers worse. As for the visual updates, they're limited to a slightly cleaner design for the lower bumper, a slightly tweaked grille, new wheels and LED taillights. The S90 immediately stalks a luxurious figure out on the road though, and in our minds, only the new BMW 5 Series LCI betters it in the looks department. The cabin of the S90 has always been an excellent place to be sat. The seats just look like works of art, and the whole cabin feels like it's so richly put together. It just makes you feel special. With this update, Volvo's moved the S90 to this new infotainment system that it uses in the Polestar 2. It's been co-developed with Android, and it has Google Apps baked right in. So for example, it has the Google Assistant accessible from a button on the steering wheel, and it has Google Maps that works completely independent of your phone, which means that if you don't like your wired smartphone integration in the form of Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, you don't have to use it. You can just keep your phone on the charging pad, hook it up to Bluetooth for your audio, and everything else is taken care of by the car itself. And the bonus is that Volvo gives you 4 years of complimentary data to run all the systems of the car, including over-the-air software updates. Space as always is plenty in terms of knee room and headroom, though the rear bench is a little lacking in under-thigh support compared to rivals, while the 461-litre boot is down on competition as well. What the S90 clearly has going for it is the excellent 19-speaker 1400-watt Bose & Wilkins audiophile grade system, impeccable build quality, and an overall sense that you're getting much more for your money over similarly priced rivals. And while that's how it may appear to be on the face of it, the slightly snatchy power delivery and busy ride at low speeds may make you think twice. If that doesn't bother you though, and the cachet of the Volvo badge appeals, things like Volvo's new lifetime spares replacements for free will definitely make living with one easier.